folks. Today we are talking about billions. Yes, that's billions with a B. Specifically, billions of edge devices. Did you know that there is projected to be over 7 billion edge devices, either enterprise or consumer, by the end of this decade? Yeah, that's a lot of edge design requirements to fine tune. And more, artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities are included in those design needs. So, if you're one of the many engineers working on an edge AI design, listen closely. We're about to introduce you to a set of solutions that will definitely make your design life easier. Hi, I'm Amelia Dalton, host of Chalk Talk. In this episode of Chalk Talk, Omar Cruz from Infineon and I explore the advantages of Infineon's PSoC Edge next generation MCU based edge device platform and how this platform can enable the next generation of responsive ML edge devices. And before we get started, don't forget to click that link. There you can find even more information about this topic from Infineon. Hi, Omar. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Amelia. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. Okay, so Omar, artificial intelligence and machine learning is everywhere. But what is the most efficient approach here?
Well, there are definitely different schools of thought, and each end user might adjust to their best suited approach. We do believe that the current status quo is probably not the most efficient, just because of the different limitations that you can find in the AI ML existing in the cloud or being processed at the cloud. So what I'm seeing here, what we normally have seen in the last couple of years as AI ML has been introduced, we're seeing, first of all, internet connection being required, right? That's absolutely a must. Even if you only have a small sensor at the end node, you absolutely require internet. The other problem is that internet and that connectivity and what it entails, it can have latency and non-real-time response, right? So when you think about it, is like you have this sensor, it gathers information, it sends it to the internet, the AI ML is being processed at the cloud, and then comes back and it takes a couple of milliseconds perhaps, and the latency is not the best experience overall. With that said, also, same type of use case, you have to start turning on your radios, right, from the Wi-Fi or whatever type of connectivity that you use with the internet, right? So that comes as an inefficiency in terms of power. With all these data being transacted back and forth, it's not only inefficient in power, but also it brings some security concerns, right? You don't know what type of data is out there. It is interacting with the cloud. You don't know if there are malicious attacks happening while that transactions are happening in the cloud. So from my point of view, it doesn't sound like the best approach today. And on top of that, we have a relatively high cost, right? You need to have your processing, you need to have your radios, you need to have the transactions of things going on, and you need to have a lot of components in your bill of materials.
That makes sense. So, Omar, what are the advantages of edge AI?
So first of all, no internet connection is required, right? So when you think about it, now we have gotten to this time where you can actually process at the edge, right? So you can do generative AI, you can do the actual machine learning processing happening with your microcontroller at the edge. So no internet connection is required. We talked about latency, right? We talked about this back and forth between the sensor, between the node and the cloud. So you can omit that, right? You can actually have a real interaction, a real-time response happening right there at the edge. Of course, we also talk about power, right? And not be really efficient. But when it comes to having it at the edge, you actually can optimize for power. You can decide how to turn on or off your radios, what type of, even in your system, you can stick with low power domains. So that's actually quite efficient when it comes to power consumption. We also talked about the transactions happening right between the end node and the cloud. Of course, when you reduce that amount of transactions, you can think about improvements in security, improvements of data privacy, right? Not having so many hooks for malicious attacks to be there. And that's always good news when it comes to, embedded processing, when it comes to developers coming up with their new use cases and applications. Same flow, right? The reduction of cost, right? You now have microcontrollers that allowed you to process at the edge, that allowed you to become quite efficient when it comes to the bill of materials. And overall, this is what we have with PSoC Edge and having machine learning capabilities at the edge.
Fantastic. All right. So, Omar, what has Infineon come up with to address this edge AI shift?
Yes. So we have come up with a new family of microcontrollers. This is actually the new generation of responsive machine learning edge devices, right? Really targeted at the edge with a lot of performance capabilities and new features being introduced, right? So I've talked about power efficiency, I talked about processing, I talked about performance, and this is what we are introducing with PSoC Edge, right? First of all, high performance and also low power compute, right? So we have a high performance Cortex M55 running at 400 megahertz with DSP capabilities because of the Helium architecture. But at the same time, we are introducing a low power, always on domain with a Cortex M33 core, focusing especially on those always on type of use cases. And to make things better for that low power domain, we also have an NPU, a neural processing unit accelerator with NN Lite, which is a micro NPU that Infineon has developed to allow extreme efficiency when it comes to always on type of operations. We also have, evidently, as more or new generations and new use cases are being brought up, right? We have more memory resources and integration. We have a state-of-the-art security. We are introducing new levels of security, new levels of certification with Infineon Edge Protect technology. I'm going to be also talking about the enablement, right? Because we not only have the enablement for the microcontroller itself being introduced by Modus Toolbox with software, with tools, with middleware, but also being introduced by DeepGraph, which is our end-to-end machine learning solution that allows you to take your models or that allows you to take your data and have an AI ML flow. We have kits, we have advanced machine learning, which is one of the main topics of today's discussion, Ethos U55 for high performance AI ML. And we also have graphics capabilities. We have a 2.5D GPU, fully synchronized with voice and smart applications. So we can drive tomorrow's product with more features, power efficiency, whether we're talking about machine learning or advanced machine learning use cases such as voice and natural language, vision, access, and safety. And the cherry on the cake, it's the graphics components that we can also offload with PSoC Edge.
I know there's more than one solution in this family. So, Omar, could you give us an overview of the portfolio?
Yes, definitely. So we know that developers might be in different scenarios or may have different use cases, right? Or perhaps they're not even ready to jump just straight on into advanced machine learning capabilities. So we have come up with different levels with different set of features being introduced by 4 different members of the PSoC Edge family. So we have PSoC Edge E81, which we kind of take like the base, right? Of course, you're going to get the higher performance of our dual core architecture. Of course, you're going to get the benefits of advanced memory integration. And of course, you're going to get the peripherals, right? But if you are not ready to move on to advanced machine learning, PSoC Edge E81 is the right fit. On the other hand, we may have cases where you need graphics acceleration, right? And you are not ready to move on into advanced machine learning capabilities. But if you need graphics, we have the PSoC Edge E82, and we have added that on top of the E81 components. If you need advanced machine learning, right, and this is something that we believe is going to be the trend and where all the different developers are going to be moving forward, we have the PSoC Edge E83. So it's the baseline, but on top of that, we are adding advanced HML capabilities for audio, voice, vision, as well as presence, gesture, and motion use cases. And the superset of our family, the guy that has it all is, of course, our PSoC Edge E84. We have even more memory levels in this particular microcontroller. We are adding graphics. We are adding advanced machine learning capabilities, and we have everything enabled in the PSoC Edge E84. It is worth mentioning that all of these 4 different microcontrollers are 100% being compatible. And when it comes to the systems, right, when it comes to Modus Toolbox and DeepGraph that I have mentioned already, all of this is total system and software compatibility across a pretty comprehensive set of microcontrollers that are AI/ML ready, Edge AI ready.
So, what particular applications do you envision taking advantage of these benefits from the edge?
Yes, like when you start thinking about the edge and having machine learning capabilities at the edge, it's almost like the sky is the limit, right? So you're going to see all of these different applications from human machine interfaces, right? Think about appliances, right? When you can start adding edge capabilities, when you can start adding voice, your natural language processing when you talk to your thermostat, when you can start thinking about home panels, right? That you can interact almost seamlessly with these kind of applications and use cases. Same in the industry, right? For industrial device usability type of products, for factory automation where you need safety, when you need to understand if something is not placed in the right position or something might be in a bad position to bring chaos to your factory automation. That's where AI/ML might be bringing a lot of solutions for you. When you think about the smart home, right? Thermostats, speakers, door locks, of course, in robotics, and I'm not only talking about humanoids, right? But vacuum cleaners, vacuum robots, service robots, all of those different applications are already thinking about what type of capabilities from Edge AI/ML you can bring into those use cases. Of course, we have seen wearables where fitness watches, where augmented reality glasses, where virtual reality glasses are already thinking about machine learning, and also audio accessories, right? So also top of that, we're thinking about security cameras, right? IP cameras where you can detect if something is passing or if it's a non-relevant event, you can discard it, right? So IP cameras, doorbells, security cameras. Anyways, as I've said, I believe the sky is the limit with machine learning and PSoC Edge. So I'm talking about these potential types of applications, but I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be talking even more about new applications that we have discovered as we have introduced this microcontroller into the market. And then in terms of the use cases, right? Because I already talked about applications, but also use cases that can be visible across different type of applications. We can see potential for device management, right? Whether we're talking about anomaly detection, whether we're talking about predictive maintenance and autonomous operation, you can see those might be potential fit for PSoC Edge type of devices. Of course, some of those components and some of those use cases would not require advanced machine learning capabilities, and we can still support them with previous generation of PSoC. But when you start thinking about audio, voice, and language, when you start thinking about vision, where you require more performance, more features from the AI/ML aspect, that's where PSoC Edge and PSoC Edge E81, E82, E83, and E84 might play a relevant role, right? We're talking about audio playback, of course, beamforming, but also we're talking about natural language processing, right? Being able to speak seamlessly to an end device and that device to come up with content, come up with a response, right? That's unique. And that's something that we are now able to address with devices such as PSoC Edge. The other component, of course, vision, right? Whether we're talking about vision based with cameras or based from radars, we can also address those type of use cases with devices and with microcontrollers such as PSoC Edge, right? We're talking about position detection, face recognition, object detection, all of these different use cases that can be used in different type of applications. This is something that we can address and support with PSoC Edge.
So, Omar, can we take a quick deep dive into the flagship MCU of this PSoC Edge family?
Yes, definitely. And that's what we're introducing with PSoC Edge E84. I've kind of gone over a couple of high level type of features, but if you take into a deeper dive, of course, I've said we have a Cortex M55 with Helium DSP in the high performance domain, right? That domain also contains and supports an ARM Ethos U55 neural processing unit being able to run at up to 400 megahertz. We have a low power domain, which is driven by a Cortex M33, being able to run up to 200 megahertz. And in that low power domain, we also have our NN Lite micro neural processing unit being able to address always on type of operations and applications such as voice and audio. We have high memory resources, right? So we have up to 5 megabytes of a system SRAM, and we also have a 1 megabyte of SRAM being addressed in the low power domain. We have a new non-volatile memory with 512 kilobytes of RRAM. We also have external memory interfaces. We have 2 serial memory interfaces and 2 SD host controllers. We have human machine interfaces. We have communication from serial peripherals, Ethernet, CAN-FD for industrial type of applications, analog components with analog to digital converters, digital to analog converters, op-amps, competitors, and also one of the key elements that we have in our PSoC Edge E84 is a secured enclave that allow us to come up with the highest levels of certification for a microcontroller with secure boot components, with side channel resistance, true random number generator, as well as script acceleration and tamper protection. All of these features available now, 3 different packages with a WLB154, that is our tiniest piece of microcontroller, an EWLB235, and of course our ball grid array, 220 pins available also in 2 different operating ranges, right? So we have a consumer from minus 20 to 70 degrees Celsius, and our industrial version from minus 40 to 105 Celsius degrees.
So, Omar, we've talked a lot about hardware, but what about the software? And how do we match or integrate all of this?
Yes, that's a great question because, of course, hardware is important. But nowadays, when you have this type of microcontrollers, right, that integrate so many different interfaces, dual core architecture, and so many capabilities, the software also becomes key. So we have a pretty comprehensive set of software and machine learning ecosystem being mainly brought by Modus Toolbox at DeepGraph. When you talk about Modus Toolbox, not only we have software, but we also have tools and we have documentation and community support. And around that, we have support for voice and audio, we have security, we have connectivity interfaces and being supported from the software perspective with a full unified set of traditional development tools. We have HMI, we have vision, as well as we have machine learning now with the integration of DeepGraph Studio development tools along with the Modus Toolbox machine learning. So when it comes to data collection, pre-processing, model training, as well as model conversion and deployment, the combination and DeepGraph on Modus Toolbox will make the developers just jumpstart in an easy way, in an easy fashion, and get their models being deployed in our PSoC Edge microcontroller in an easy way.
For AI and machine learning, Edge AI developers may need a little help, right, Omar? So what's done to help them?
We have actually introduced and acquired a company that we have branded DeepGraph. And DeepGraph, it's a set of products that is going to be able to provide different set of assets and capabilities depending on the paradigm or depending on the developer experience that the developers are looking for, right? So first of all, we have DeepGraph Studio, which is an Edge AI development platform. Again, if the developers need to have data collection, if they need pre-processing and model training, as well as model conversion and deployment, that is going to be your number one tool with DeepGraph Studio. If the developers want to leverage edge AI models that have been fully trained and that are ready to deploy, we have actually Deepcraft ready models. We have Deepcraft adaptable models, and we also have Deepcraft Studio accelerators, so they can leverage what is being done already from Infineon and from Deepcraft, and they can deploy these models into the PSoC Edge microcontrollers. And on top of that, we also have what we call the Edge AI solutions. This is a collection of tools, models, as well as configurators for AI-based set of capabilities. We're talking about voice, audio, vision, as well as sensing type of solutions that we have also optimized to be running with PSoC Edge microcontrollers.
Okay, so Omar, how can developers get started evaluating this?
Well, we actually have two different kits, right? And this is what's great about it. We have the full-fledged version of PSoC Edge E84 evaluation kit. This is for rapid prototyping and development of applications based on PSoC Edge. In this particular baseboard and system-on module, you have easy access to all the interfaces and capabilities from PSoC Edge. As I've said, this contains a baseboard, which you can see here in the picture on the right. And we also have a system-on module where we actually not only feature only PSoC Edge E84, but we also have our chipsets from the Wi-Fi and BLE world that allows you to have cloud connectivity immediately. So that's one of our evaluation kits. The other one is a small form factor that we have named PSoC Edge E84 AI kit that is been optimized as a low-cost platform designed to support the creation of the developer's edge AI applications, right? So when it comes to data being collected, we have radars, we have acoustic sensors, we have microphones, as well as pressure and IMU sensors that are available in the kit. They can start collecting the data. They can interact with Deepcraft Studio and Deepcraft tools, and they can bring the models in a fast fashion, in a low cost-effective way. And this is what is being introduced with PSoC Edge AI Kit.
Omar, for my audience who wants more information, where should they go?
So I would recommend them to go to infineon.com/PSoC Edge. In that particular site, you can purchase whether you want a PSoC Edge evaluation kit or whether you want an Edge AI kit. It can be purchased in that website. You can download Modus Toolbox. You can watch the set of trainings that we have from not only from Modus Toolbox, but also for PSoC Edge. And if you need more help, just let us know. We have a developer community where we have already added a PSoC Edge forum for technical support, and we will be happy to hear from developers in this new journey that we have with PSoC Edge and machine learning at the edge.
Excellent. Well, Omar, I think that's all I have time for today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Amelia. Thank you for the invite.
Before we go, you didn't forget to click that link, did you? There you can find even more information about this topic from Infineon. For Chalk Talks, I'm Amelia Dalton from eejournal.com. For more Chalk Talks, head on over to the Chalk Talk section of EE Journal. You can't miss it, it's right across the top. Or head on over to YouTube, youtube.com/EE Journal.